Hello, everyone. Welcome to the official Court of the Celestial Emperor podcast once again. We've gone through a bit of a name change because the Indigo God Emperor is no longer a good brand. I don't think it's a bit of a long name. However, allow me to introduce my other co-host, Juniper. Welcome, June.
Hello. Hi.
You ready to get infodumped about Lovecraft stuff? Because that is the point of this podcast, after all.
Sure.
To identify the extraterrestrial and also interdimensional / interplanar horrors that Lovecraft has devised. So, our last topic was the Elder Things. Now, the Elder Things are something that I've described in the previous podcast. However, they're a race of extraterrestrial. They're a race of extraterrestrials. And today, we'll be sticking with that theme of covering extraterrestrials. Today, June, I kept you in the dark because you wanted to be surprised, and also, I think it would be better for everybody if we were surprised for this topic. Well, other than the people reading the title. That'll be the Migo, otherwise known as the Fungi from Yuggoth. Oh, they're very interesting. I love them. You ready to hear about that, June?
Sure. Who doesn't love hearing about the miraculous world of fungi?
Precisely. Now, the fungi from Yuggoth are a little bit complicated. They either come. I'm not entirely certain exactly of their origin point. I've heard various conflicting accounts, and I'd have to go back and reread myself, which I probably should have done for this podcast, but who cares? This is an entertainment over accuracy anyway. We like to entertain and to give somewhat accurate information. I mean, I try to keep up to my sources, but anyway, we'll continue on. Enough rambling. Their sources are a little bit debated from what I can tell online and from the books. Either they come from a higher spatial dimension, that being not like an alternate universe or anything like that. No. They're quite a bit different. We're talking about mathematical dimensions here, like height, width, depth, that sort of thing. You know, because in Lovecraft, he likes to play with mathematics and physics and space, and so he has higher spatial dimensions, which are more than just the 3D, and also he has other planes of existence, such as the Dreamlands, or the what we like to think that the Miko are from, at least from various sources, the outside, which is that's a bit of a tricky thing to discuss. The outside is described as outside of ordered space and time. It's kind of like between spatial dimensions, if that makes sense. So either the Miko are from between the spaces between spaces, the outside, which is kind of like Lovecraft hell, in a way. It's like where all the nasty demon god things come from, like Cthulhu and Shub and Nyarlathotep and Azathoth. I'm sure these are big names that everybody knows. Everybody at least knows Cthulhu, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's speculated
Big squid
that
guy.
yes, Squid Man, Octopus Man, yes, precisely. He's from the outside. However, this episode isn't about Cthulhu. We'll get to him later. Miko are likely from either the outside or a higher spatial dimension. They do worship beings from the outside, though, however. Their patron deity is Nyarlathotep. The Miko like to, from what I can tell, their relations with a lot of other extraterrestrials are actually pretty chill. They tend to just do a lot of trading and mining, and they also have incredibly advanced technology. I mean, all the extraterrestrials do. Like, if we look at the Shawkets, they're basically inventing life from scratch, and have a high degree of genetic modification. The Elder Things do. Their biological science is just crazy. The Migo, on the other hand, like to play with speed and velocity. They also have like I think they've got like various electrical weaponry too. They're also very good surgeons on humans. However, um, it's because of their incredible speed and dexterity. They're able to do a lot of things very, very well. The Migo are highly dexterous and, well, yeah, they're just very advanced and they move incredibly quickly. Um, it's said that they can fly faster than the speed of light, which allows them to do some mild amounts of time travel. Because according to H.P. Lovecraft, they he's using Einsteinian notion, if that makes sense, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Einstein, he says that if you move faster than the speed of light, you can time travel, and so that's kind of what Lovecraft was playing with a little bit there, I think, with science fiction. And so, yes, the wonderful world of fungi, as you mentioned earlier, they're half crustacean, half fungi, in the sort of like symbiotic relationship. But this is just fan speculation. Just there's no source for this, but I like to speculate that the Migo are actually the fungi themselves, and that the crustaceans were like a race that they either had a symbiotic relationship growing up with, they're like evolving with, or they just straight up they're like kind of like interdimensional, or they're like interdimensional or like outside cordyceps. Does that make sense?
Yeah, cordyceps are the fungi that take over the bodies of insects.
Precisely, and I think that's where he got his inspiration from, was seeing cordyceps bugs. Because Lovecraft, yeah, he was just kind of terrified of the entire fucking Earth. He was just like, what is this hell place? Now, granted, he was, as we've said on the previous episode, he's also highly problematic. And if anybody wants to bring up his cat's name, they're getting immediately banned. Because that is a slur, and saying slurs is not cool or funny. In any case, yeah, it's just a fan theory of mine, either the fungi or the actual Migo / fungi from Yuggoth. Or, another likely explanation is that they're not separate entities. In fact, it's just that the fungus grows chitin-like plates, like bugs do. Like bug exoskeleton, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could be that because it's said that their physiology is fungoid, but they're crustacean-like in appearance. So it could be really either or, in my opinion. However, I'm sure some angry nerd will fact check me, being like, actually, if this podcast takes off, and we get more than like 100 viewers or so. But if I do get actually by a Lovecraft fan, and they're actually able to provide me a book as a source, I'm going to keep my my opinion. Hopefully, you're following all the way, or following so far, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any questions so far?
Honestly, it seems kind of straightforward. I mean, there's these hybrid crab fungi people who may actually be hybrid crabs or fungi, or may just be fungi taking over and piloting the corpses of these crab people.
Precisely. Oh, yes.
So I think I'm following along.
Wonderful. I have another detail to mention. I keep forgetting to mention. Yuggoth was Lovecraft's term for Pluto. However, they're not from Pluto proper. Pluto's just their most recent, or their most, not recent, but their most, like, their closest base to Earth, which is why they're called the fungi from Yuggoth. Because at the time they were debating a name for Pluto, or they hadn't discovered it yet. One of those two. And Lovecraft just decided to call it Yuggoth, because that's the name that the Migo have for it. And the Migo, by the way, is Mi-Go, as you'll see in the title when I spell it out for you guys. Migo is actually a Tibetan, or like a bastardization of a Tibetan word, meaning the abominable snowman, or the Yeti.
So, fun fact for those who were unaware, we apparently named Pluto on March 24th, 1930.
Oh yeah, this was when he was writing his stuff. Thank you for the fact check, by the way. Always appreciated it. Yeah, so he was definitely writing this stuff as they were discovering Pluto, and they're coming up with a name for it. Because Lovecraft was active in the 20s and early 30s to mid 30s before he died of intestinal cancer. How lovely, in any case. So, the Miko use Pluto as their closest base of operation to Earth because a lot of other extraterrestrials own the moons of a lot of the gas giants and a lot of the other planets in the solar system. And that's just like the closest they could get. And also, they don't really like interacting with humans that much. They kind of find humans to be kind of awful and use them mainly as lab experiments or just generally stay the fuck away from them. Um,
Can you blame them?
why are they? True, 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 true. But why are they here? They're actually trying to. They're mining rare minerals that we have here on Earth that they don't really have on other planets. So this is just like a very distant backwater mining operation for them, which is why, in my mind, granted we don't have any facts to back this up, but in my mind, I like to speculate that the Miko have like an intergalactic slash multi-galactic sort of trade empire with a lot of the other species, like the Elder Things and the Blind Polyps, which we'll get to in a later episode, and the star spawn of Cthulhu. I'm sure they're pretty buddy with too, because they both worship gods from the outside. However, that's just another bit of fan speculation. We don't have any sources to back that up. That's just what I like to think. Just like how I like to think that with the species of our previous video, the Elder Things, I also like to think they have like some sort of multi-galactic empire going on, and this is just a distant backwater colony. Because a lot of these species are, a lot of the extraterrestrial species are interdimensional. Like they transcend multiple spatial dimensions with their technology, or just where they're born, or where they evolved, or whatever. It does not matter. A lot of them just do inhabit higher spatial dimensions or the dreamlands, or even sometimes go into the outside. Like the Migo, they do go into the outside. They have a portal to it out there on Pluto. Because in Lovecraft, there's on various planets. In fact, I'm pretty sure all of them. They have like weird spatial glitches where it'll break and you can directly walk into either the Dreamlands, which is funny because the Dreamlands are locked out of our physical space and time, unless if you find one of those doors or you fall asleep. And the outside is very similar. Outside, you kind of need a gate to get to because it's locked out of space and time. You can also use magic, because Lovecraft but he used magic as a thing for his storytelling, where he basically just said, magic is hyper advanced technology that humans don't fully understand, which is, decent if you want to incorporate witches into your story in a sci-fi setting. The Migo have a portal to the outside in there, or like a way to get there very easily on Yuggoth. Probably why they started appearing all over Yuggoth. If you want to take the theory of they're from the outside, or the void, or oftentimes people call the other gods, like Cthulhu and Nyarlathotep, the outer gods, because they're from the outside. However, the other gods is supposed to be their distinction, or their designation, rather. Hopefully you're following still far, Jen.
I'm following pretty well.
Wonderful.
I'd be more interested to learn about the Dreamlands, though. That seems like a really interesting subject. We should do an episode on that.
We totally should. The Dreamlands that's a huge topic for another day. But yes, to put it shortly, though, here, it's kind of like Alice in Wonderland on even more acid. But that's the best way to put the Dreamlands. Next topic of our discussion for the Miko. Yeah, like I said earlier, they're here mining rare minerals. It's speculated that, well, the Elder Things had this green soapstone, this fancy green soapstone that they would mine up and turn into magical artifacts to protect themselves from beings from the outside. Well, it's likely too that the Migo are trying to mine this stuff. But featured in the story The Whisper in the Darkness, that's the one that I first read that had the Migo in it. long, long time ago. The Miko are. He says in the story that they like to find very remote, mountainous locations. And the reason why they like mountains is because when they try to do their faster than light speed travel with their wings. Oh, by the way, they can fly through the outer space with their wings. By the way, they can fly through outer space, which he calls the ether. Yeah, pre-Einsteinian notion. He's using it for sci-fi, I'm pretty sure. But when they do that kind of fucking faster than light travel that they normally do to fly between stars and dimensions and get to the void, they how do I say this other than they're very clumsy in tight quarters with it, which is why Earth is horrible for them because there's lots of shit to avoid. Which is why they generally prefer mountains because they don't like getting caught up on stuff while doing their faster than light travel. Another reason why they don't like humans very much is because, well, we build buildings that get in their way. You know what I mean? I can tell you right now, too, that a skyscraper is not nearly as durable as a frickin' mountainside. Also, like I said, the Miko don't like people because people are scared of things.
Imagine you're just chilling in your penthouse apartment and this crab fungi creature just bursts through your wall.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, seriously, like, that's just not good. Not good at all. Not fun. I would not want that to happen. Also, another thing about the Miko, and various other things about the outside, dogs hate them. Dogs can sense when beings are from the outside, and they do not like that because it's like, because the closest thing that you can get to demons in Lovecraft is beings from the outside, right? And you know how, like, in like modern superstitious circles or people who are more spiritual inclined, let's say, like, oh yeah, animals, they can, other non-human animals can sense otherworldly presences, right? Like ghosts. Like, you know, it's a common excuse why your cat freaks out or why your dog's barking at nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a common explanation, and I think he wanted to work that into his story. And so, yeah, dogs just fucking hate things from the outside. They really do not like them. Probably because they can sense a sort of like really dark, otherworldly energy that things from the outside have. Because, like I said, the outside is the closest you can kind of get to hell in Lovecraft. And I'm pretty sure hell does exist too in Lovecraft, like Christian hell. But it's, I think it's just like a section of the Dreamlands that's really fucked up. But, it is also said that the outside rests beneath all of space and time and like all of ordered reality. Because even the Dreamlands, as chaotic as they can be, are ordered reality still. The outside exists in nothing but chaos. It's got a bunch of hungry, nasty monsters that are constantly wanting to eat and feed. Their gods are no different. They desire blood and bloodshed and sacrifice in order to create avatars into physical space where they're called upon. Migo not only worship Nyarlathotep, but they also have this other really nasty creature that could probably rival Cthulhu. Maybe. It's just incredibly powerful regardless. I mean, maybe Cthulhu could beat the crap out of this thing. But its name is, I believe, Gitanothoa, yes. Bit of a mouthful. This thing is incredibly powerful, and it comes from the outside. It's a dark demigod of, you know, otherworldly demons. Like, Gitanothoa can actually petrify living things with its gaze. Kind of like Medusa, except instead of turning them to stone, it just covers them in this gross skin covering that makes them not able to move, and usually mummifies them in the process if they stay in there long enough. Yeah, Gitanothoa is fucking nasty. Very, very nasty. I think that one is featured in Out of the Eons. But yeah, and it isn't a total Lovecraft invention either. It's like, I think it was a co-story that he wrote with another one of his friends, because he liked to write stories with his friends and play with their universes as well with his. But yes, he rather Gitanothoa. It's kind of hard to assign a gender to Gitanothoa as most of the deities from the outside. because they're not really even biological organisms. However, some of them do get gendered, like Cthulhu and Chub. I refuse to say her rest of her name. And Nyarlathotep. Those have genders. I think Azathoth does too. However, they're not like biologically gendered, if that makes sense. Just how people attribute them and their qualities. It's like deities and such, you know what I mean? Yeah, they're nasty little gribblies. Very cunning, very brutal. Like I said, they know human anatomy pretty well because they've taken a few of us back, and fucked with our anatomy a bit. In fact, they have this really interesting tool called the brain cylinder. The brain cylinder is pretty much what it describes. It keeps a human brain in a jar. It's kind of like Futurama, except minus the full head. It's just the brain. But that brain is able to like stay alive and stay alert and aware of its environment, and even communicate through speakers that the thing's installed. Really interesting, but also fucking horrific because your body's somewhere else, dude. You're just a brain in a jar.
I mean, to be fair, all of mankind is kind of just a brain in a jar.
Well, that's true. If you count our body as a jar, then sure.
Yeah.
But it's like literally like a glass and metal cylinder that they just lap people's brains into. So that's another important detail to remember about the Miko. They also can create human-like animatronics that are nearly identical to people, and they can just like puppet them and really fuck with people that way and infiltrate
slot a brain
humans.
cylinder into them.
No. Generally speaking, they puppet the bodies, the animatronic bodies, to like fit in with people. Now, granted, people who get too close and agree to work with the Miko usually get put in brain cylinders, and they probably do have cultists around. But I don't think the Miko are really about that kind of life. They more so just see humans as a sick science experiment, which is kind of like, and sick in like a bad way. That's what the Elder Things thought of us too when they first invented us, according to the setting, right? Because it's important to note and to remind people that according to Lovecraft, in his stories anyway, we were invented by aliens as a funny science experiment joke, and were laughed at and derised at as being basically ape creatures. Until Cthulhu was like, yo, what if I give you the ability to dream? Wouldn't that be rad? And humanity's like, okay, cool, we'll take that. And then they managed to help overthrow the Elder Things with the Choggoths. The Choggoths being like the primordial life forms that the Elder Things created from scratch. I just don't think the Miko like us very much because they're supposed to be typed as kind of evil aliens. But they're a bit more morally ambiguous, I think. They just kind of view us as kind of scary and awful. But at the same time, if they really wanted to, they could just wipe out our entire fucking planet. No problem. I think they're just too busy squabbling over resources to actually devote all the manpower to invading Earth and wiping us out. Plus, there's also still a few sleeping extraterrestrials on the planet that they kind of that need us. When we get to the star spawn of Cthulhu, I'll go into more detail. But basically, remember when I said that Cthulhu gave humanity the ability to dream and access the dreamlands?
Yeah.
That also gave us a lot of like really godlike power in that setting, like to a ridiculous degree. Like think like Dr. Manhattan. When people can properly utilize the dreaming power, they can warp physical reality too, like Dr. Manhattan, basically. And Cthulhu gave that to the entire species. Because only certain people are able to access it. And so the Miko, I think, kind of keep us around as also like a livestock for their gods, because, we shed a lot of blood, don't we? And the gods of the outside really like that. Because, as I said, they're powered by blood and blood sacrifice and bloodshed. Alright? Very nasty, evil gods that like violence and destruction. And so, I think that's another reason why the Miga haven't exterminated us yet, because they work for the outside. But at least according to like Lovecraft lore. And I hope nobody's getting the impression that I actually believe any of this stuff, because it's just a fiction book. But the way that I'm talking about saying, like, according to Lovecraft, yada yada, you get what I mean. I'm just,
Yeah.
talking about its setting. Remarkably similar to Earth, just not as fucking crazy. But in some ways, even crazier. Other than that, I think I've actually run dry with information. Do you have any questions, June? I don't want to just ramble on.
Um, no, not really. You did a pretty good job of keeping it succinct and understandable. I mean, sure,
Hell
there's a
yeah.
bunch of questions I have about a bunch of the different topics that you've brought up, but
Yes.
really, I feel like they would take episodes themselves to explain. So,
Well, luckily you're here, and we can record more of those later. Well, I think like I said, I've run dry on information. So, everybody, our audience, please take care. I have been your host, Celestial Emperor, and this is my co-host, June. Hopefully we can see you again next time on the Court of the Celestial Emperor podcast. Thank you
bye
so much. Take
everyone.
care, everyone.